Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host Gamer K, and this video we are going to be doing something a little bit, okay, not so different. I've done game ideas before, but this one is being done in a different way. I'm giving an idea for a game that is based on a great company that has done a lot of great games and some of my favorite story games. From Quantic Dreams, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human. This idea came up while me and E were chatting one time, where we were hanging out, talking about some games about last year, and I got the idea and it's been a long time, about 7 years since Quantic Dreams done another full game in the same style that they've done their interactive adventure games, which I love. And they've done a murder mystery theme, they've done a supernatural theme, and they did a sci-fi theme. Now this idea is really out of the box, and since it is the month of love, I came up with an idea for a romance style thriller kind of in a way, but not so far like I know the other three games had a very overarching story within the entirety of the game. Or in case of Detroit Become Human, the story builds itself within the characters, but there's no super overarching plot. Until your decisions affect the overall outcome. Something similar to that, where there's no real story. There has to be a story, obviously. And this one is something I came up with because I love a lot of romance. I love romance thriller movies, as cliched as they are. And I don't know, I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and come up with something fun. And so, before I begin, these ideas are very mature and very subject heavy on certain topics, such as now I don't talk about a lot of scenarios or anything like this in light, because when I see stuff like this in games, shows, or anything, I get a little not woozy, but I get a little, I just don't like talking about this kind of topics. But this video will have topics of abusive relationship topics. Nothing outside of that, like no assault topic, nothing like that. Domestic abuse and relationships is the only terrible thing I'll be talking about in this video, because again, you can't just have a happy-go-lucky story all the time in a game like this and not have a threat happen, you know? So as far as that goes, that's the only harsh topic I'll be discussing during this game. So if a topic like that if you're offended by that or anything, don't take it too personally. I say this in a weird way. It's not to promote something like that. It's because I've seen a lot of it in shows and other games, and it will showcase how someone can move on from a scenario like that and grow and be healed by something like that for a certain character in this story. So if topics like that aren't your cup of tea, or if it triggers something, bow out now. I fully understand. But other than that, the idea I had for this game is called Connected Hearts. It's a game all about romance, trust, building yourself back up after a terrible relationship, and in one instance, discovering who one is at a very young age. Now, I personally I've never gone through anything like this, but seeing in so many games, like how people, and a whole bunch of instances, how people's lives are very different and how they take different paths it's an interesting topic that could definitely be discovered. I know they tackle themes like this in other story-based games, but to have a full game that's devoted to forms of love and trust and relationships and all the drama that ensues. And obviously, like Quantic Dreams, there will be a god of good moments in these stories. Some humor, some serious moments, sometimes some spicy moments, considering this is a romance-themed game. Because I don't see a lot of those outside of like dating simulators or those app games where your choices and who you go after affect the story. So going into this game idea, for a setting, because I've seen California done a lot. I've seen Los Angeles done a lot in video games. New York City, obviously. And the last one that they did Detroit, which is literally right across from me. I'm not even joking. That's how Canadian I am. So I had two ideas for this. No, actually, you know what? I just had the one. Looking at my notes again. Chicago. And I'm kind of on a big Chicago craze because of the movie Chicago, for one reason. And also, well, the Chicago series, Fire, Med, and PD. I think it would be a great city for a video game, because very rarely do we get games that are set outside of like huge major cities, again, like New York or Washington or Los Angeles. So having it and because now that I think about it, every single game, in two of their games, they did heavy areas that had a lot of winter snow scenes. So it could really add a little bit to the atmosphere of the game. Now, again, choose your own adventure. Obviously, that would be the thing. And obviously, as Quantic Dream does, depending on what you choose in certain aspects of your game, you can branch off into different choices, different paths, different levels, depending on your choices. But unlike the other games where, except for Beyond Two Souls, that's where we played as one character. Unlike in Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, the three main characters that you play as will not interact with each other throughout the game. They're set in the same city, but they will not meet each other at any point in the game. There will be no interactions where your choices will affect what happens to this character or so on. And I think it's because if a lot of people think that's what they're going to do, I say you rip the rug out from under them. Like, if there's like a small moment where you think, okay, is this a choice going to affect the next character I play, or is it going to affect later on in the game? None of that. Kind of take away from that whole cliche a little bit. And the main focus of this game are different inversions of love. For example, and I'll get into that as I describe each character. So, like I said, there will be some funny moments in this game idea, like joking around throughout the game. Some serious moments, obviously, where you'll have to do QTE sections to either get away from something or make a certain moment, spur decision, or if you have to, those kinds of moments. All right, let me go through my list right here. Let's see. So, for the first character I came up with 3 different characters, different aspects. I don't have names for them at all because this is just like a rough draft idea. So basically, first character, female character, maybe late 20s, early 30s. And we open with her story. Like, I do like how in Heavy Rain, as we go for different chapters, we kind of get the face of, like, in the rain, the character that we're going to be playing as in the next chapter, which gets us kind of ready. I like that. So maybe if they can incorporate something like that to let you know what character you're going to be during this chapter. We do something along the same lines of a dream sequence where she's having a dream about the partner that she escaped from. And this is the aspect I'm talking about, where it was kind of an abusive relationship. And again, I'm not glorifying it. I'm not talking about it in that light. It's a serious topic and something that I think in a game like this could definitely branch out a little bit and discuss a topic like this. And obviously there's not going to be a choice where because obviously this is a game about love and healing, so there would be no instances where a trophy would pop up if you stay with the abuser. Ever. Never would I ever come up with an idea like that. That is... And after seeing some sick shit that some games have done in terms of something like this, not gonna happen in my ideas. So it's a dream sequence of how she got away. And obviously she wakes up in her new apartment. Somewhat on similar ways of how Madison from Heavy Rain had that insomniac nightmare about someone breaking in and attacking her. Something on the lines of that. So for this character, I say she finally got away, and a friend of hers in Chicago told her she would set her up in a place where she can get a fresh start and everything, and think. So this is the kind of situational character where she's not really trusting of people at the start because, everything that she went through, she has to redevelop that trust with people, that when she meets new people, because she's in a new city, new people. And she will be the one that does not do a love interest scenario. I mean, obviously you can try to do that, but I think if we go rush in with a love interest for this kind of character, it feels like more choppy and not enough substance of development. If you know what I'm talking about, like if we thrust a relationship kind of character onto every single character, it feels more forced and fan fiction than actual story development. So, her friend who sets her up and everything talks about her. We do some segments where she's at a new job, a whole stuff like that. We go out with her, meet some new friends. Just basically do a lot of stuff like that. And she meets one of her friends, oldest friends, who kind of takes a liking to you, but if you try to do a romance thing, it will work, but at the same time, she gets a little scared. And depending on how you handle the situation, like either you come off as standoffish, or if you open up about what happened. And there's that whole decision making that makes the characters relationships with certain characters change or not, depending on what you choose. And obviously the story of this will take place months, like a month or so, a good couple months after she got away. So it's not right away, like fresh. And obviously there could be a therapist scene where she's getting help and all that, and developing her own life throughout each chapter, different aspects. And I know this is a big cliche, but later, like near the end of the game of her story, she obviously gets messages and threats from the ex that found her, and that whole kind of cliche and everything. And that there would always be, most likely be that kind of boss fight aspect near the end, where depending on how you've talked with certain people, someone would be there for you and defend you and all of that. An aspect I'm thinking of is that the one friend of your confidant who assisted you, he could be a cop, but you don't know it right off the bat because he doesn't talk about it. He comes in to kind of help you, arrest the guy. Big climax like that. There's a trial aspect, and basically the whole thing about moving on from a dark past like that and seeing the light with friends and people who genuinely care about you. That, again, like I said, there's 3 different forms of love within this game idea. And this one would be more of self-love and the realization that moving on isn't as easy as people make it. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be pitfalls. There's going to be a lot of obstacles. But when you're surrounded with the right amount of people, change is something that can change your life in the best way possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed that story. And now let's get down to the second one. Second character would be a married couple. And this one is where you play as the male character of this. I'm going with 2 female character leads and 1 male character lead. Because from what I've seen in Detroit and all these games, we've had 1 female protagonist with Jody Holmes. We've had 1 with Madison, and we've had 1 with Kara from all 3 games. But the rest of the characters were male focused. So this way, we get to play as 2 female characters and 1 male character to switch it up. This one would be, again, man in his like mid-30s, early 40s, something along that line, with his wife in the story, married for a good long while, but they feel like somewhat, I mean, they still love each other, but they feel like the romance has died a little bit. So in an opening scene where we kind of get a couple like hints about their relationship through flashbacks or moments in their house or items in their house that you see, like the wedding photo, other photos with friends, and then it slowly dies down and they kind of aren't doing the same things that they used to do. So on the advice of one of his friends, who says that if it's feeling a little run down, you could always do something to get some excitement back into his life. And that's where your choices, again, will affect this process. Like either jokingly say like, you're not suggesting I find someone else, are you? Something like that. And the friend goes, no, obviously not. Like, I'm kidding. Like, either you can joke about it or be a little bit serious. And he's like, obviously it would be his single friend. And obviously, because getting advice from another married couple doesn't always work, from what TV and life experience has kind of shown me a little bit. So obviously it's, that funny best friend thing. Like they've been friends since college. Kind of gives him advice by saying like, no, like do something nice together. Like, and he gives him a card to a certain shop where he could like pick something up for her on his way from work the next day. And obviously there will be different choices in this scenario of story, like what you choose to buy, activities you talk about with your wife of spicing things up, places to go out on a date night, and other choices that affect your overall story of what locations you can go to, and and again, the variety of choices that you can do with this scenario. For example, going to a certain shop to buy an outfit for her, and obviously there would be that obvious cliche that I love to death from fucking National Lampoon's Vacation, where it was the cute checkout girl who's helping you buy stuff and a little bit flirty, and there's that tint of danger, and it's up to you what you do. So again, it adds a lot of risk and danger to this aspect of what you choose to buy, what you choose to talk to the wife about in certain chapters of wanting to still keep things interesting. And again, that is obviously going into the more spicier scenes that would implement throughout this game. Because again, a romance game doesn't always have to be nonstop romance and nonstop sex almost every single topic or every single chapter or something like that. There could be some romantic dinners, going out to a club, all that kind of stuff to, again, to amplify the relationship between your wife and you throughout the game. And obviously, as you make choices, some endings will happen, because Quantic Dreams has always been the choose your own adventure with no real set ending, except for the last one. Except for the first one that I said, where obviously the abusive partner will get arrested in everything. Like, it just depends on who you kind of bonded more and who checks up on you and all that stuff and all that. There will be no instance where that is a definite ending for the game of the abusive person getting away with it or something. Never would I let that happen. Obviously, that would be your traditional game over section. So going back to the partners of this, another decision that could be made is if you guys go out to a club and the wife kind of hints about trying something different. And I watch a lot of erotic thrillers, and like the cheesy ones half the time, because it's kind of a guilty pleasure. You know, you kind of see how ridiculous these scenarios can be and how steamy the love scenes can be. And it's a guilty pleasure of mine, if you guys can't tell from my What Makes a Good Erotic Thriller video from a couple of years ago. Go check that one out. Last year, it got over 1,000 views, and that's pretty good for a cheap Canadian production like me. So obviously, depending on what choices you make in instances like that, like if your wife wants to spice things up with a third, it could be your decision on what to look for in that scenario. And after a while, a couple things happen, and not to go overly cartoony with the whole thing, but if someone in the series, in that story, gets a little too obsessive, or a little bit of trust feels like it's been broken, and there's argument scenes, there's riding on that high and then plummeting a little bit after a good couple of moments and a couple weeks of the choices that you've made affect the outcome of this scenarios of the story. So again, either someone goes a little jealous, someone gets a little obsessive, trust is broken, and you again have to reaffirm the trust aspect. There are a lot of ideas that I take from those thrillers that can be implemented in scenarios like this. Yeah. And once again, it's not going to go like you do this character story first and then you do this character story first. It's going to be a mix and match of different aspects of the stories happening at almost somewhat the same time, but it will be like either days later or weeks later, depending on each character's story and what you've how am I saying this? Like it's not like Heavy Rain, where it happens at almost the exact same time, just like different time frames. It's more like in Jodie's case, where we played her as a child, teenager, adult, back to being a child again, back to being an adult, back to being a teenager. But the story shows the progression in timeline. This one would be like, again, following the same time frame, but different days, different weeks, or sometimes the exact same day. I know it's a little confusing, but this is my best way of explaining it. And obviously, because it's a married couple, different outcomes of the story could happen, as in during the obsession and the jealousy bit, either an attack could happen from one of the other jealous people, or afterwards a divorce could happen, like they decide to call it quits after trying too hard, and finding out it worked, but only for like a burst. Or they could reconcile with be happy with what they've done and promise to do stuff not as risque as they've done or outgoing, but more like talking to each other about things and doing other stuff and building that relationship again. And this is another kind of love, like long relationships. Sometimes you get into a rut and you need something to, again, spice up the day or spice up your life, because it's not about what you do. It's the moments that you do. It's okay, I'm babbling a little bit because I'm trying to word things, but sometimes I babble and I can't say what I mean. What you do isn't important. It's about who you're with and the moment. And for a married couple, I mean, I've never been married, so I can't really speak for this. But rebuilding that connection and that love for each other in different aspects, especially within this kind of game, can like in It Takes Two, during each level, they kind of relive each other's moments, some of their dreams, some of what they've done, and they rebuild that connection to each other. So that's another good aspect of this story arc, of this story for this character. And now we've gone on to the third chapter, to the third character, as we've had one character in her late 20s, early 30s, to a married couple, or a little bit older. Now we move into the younger character, a young college student who, now again, two different aspects of love. Self-love and the love to continue after a horrific event. Rebuilding along extinguished flame by reigniting it with different methods and different topics, and reigniting that passion and love for someone that you had for so many years. This one is more about discovering oneself through different love. Obviously, this would be the kind of cliched character who's very young, not so sure about herself, and kind of curious about different genders, which resulted in a bit of a disownment from her family, and that kind of cliche that I see in so many movies, so many shows, and video games nowadays, as she is now moved into the university or college, what have you, as she meets new friends and kind of goes through the single scene at college and discovers what she likes. Being interested in both your choices and what you choose to do will again reflect on the overall outcome. Like, obviously, there could be a chapter at the local bar on campus where there's two characters who a friend of yours kind of points them out to you after you tell them what you're curious and what you're into, and your choices will affect. And again, different choices of romantic partner will change the overall dynamic. Again, where you go, like on a date, or how things work out depending on your actions. Giving so many multiple choices like this definitely can build on future chapters for stories like this. I had an idea, but I lost it. And again, this is the type of love about when the youth discovers who they are. And yeah, again, it's a university college setting, so there are about to be some a-hole characters, terrible situations, but again, never to the extent that I would ever implement into a game like this. And no, there's not going to be a scenario in this where a drunken mishap happens and you kiss the best friend. I'm avoiding all cliches like that because it complicates a lot in a story like that. When you're trying to build off on certain characters that are optional. And again, depending on how scenarios go or don't go, again, is fully up to the player. Like if you choose the male character, the male love interest, again, I don't really have like character descriptions or anything. Like, obviously, I try to stay away from stereotypes for a reason, because if it's too stereotypical, people, I know, like me, a lot of gamers will start groaning and like, oh, this is gonna be so predictable. So again, male character maybe offers you to take you something, not drinking or a restaurant or anything, or maybe something adventurous, something different, like either a rock climbing session or maybe maybe a scuba diving thing. Something kind of adventurous that breaks you out of your comfort zone. Where if you pick the female love interest, you can get different choices. Like, again, playing darts at the bar, like just hanging out there and getting... Or you could do the same thing with the male character, and obviously the female love interest would have a different choices other than rock climbing or scuba diving or whatever have you. Or reverse it, whichever. The main focus I'm trying to do on this is believability, because it's kind of like Ethan and Madison. I mean, when they first met, there was no attraction to each other. There was nothing like that until, like, he talks about what he's been going through about his son and all that, and then they have the moment, and then later on in the game, there's that bigger moments, and then they are, depending on your actions, you do end up together during the game, at the end of the game. So again, choices like that will affect the overall outcome of the love interest. No matter what you choose, there is no correct answer in this, and it's all player decision. Unlike, and I love saying this, Life is Strange Beyond, True Colors, where I know they gave us a choice with Steph and Ryan, but Steph was the obvious choice. Mostly because I wanted to give my girl from Before the Storm a good ending, and give my, like I was saying, doesn't matter what this character chooses, it will fully be up to the player to decide on what story to... Again, like I said in the previous ones, depending on your choices, you will either go to certain chapters or certain locations, and some you will do different. Again, it's fully create your own adventure, literally. And obviously, depending on what chapters you do, you will get the Quantic Dreams style trophies in almost every single chapter, depending on what you do. I'll get into those a little bit in a minute. So as far as a conflict, because the other two have conflicts themselves. Maybe later in the game, maybe a conflict with a family member who disowned her after finding out that she was bi-curious and everything like that. But not to the full extent of what the other two have gone through. Like, obviously an argument could happen where she's either with the male love interest or the female love interest, something like that. And sticking up for herself about who she is. Like, it's not for her family to decide who she is. And I want to be as diverse with options and choices like this and conflicts, because yeah, it's a video game and a story game, but these kinds of things happen in real life, and to see it represented in a video, in TV and movies and stuff is one thing, but I've never fully experienced something like that in real life, and I'm happy about that. But at the same time, it's just a kind of a message to those who actually had to gone through this, that there are a lot of people like you, and it's never okay for people to do that kind of thing. So again, a small confrontation with a family member that could definitely reiterate the strength of discovering yourself. Like, you're not so sure about who you are, but you're trying to discover who you are, and that's something that could definitely lead to really good moments further on in the story. What else could be done in this? Because the other two had big climaxes. One with the partner, and another with possibly either a bit of jealousy moment that goes into like a violent scenario. I don't know about the third one. The third one I saw more as like the more chill, but there's obviously going to be like QTE moments, like maybe something happens on like the rock climbing scenario or the scuba diving or any other adventurous moment that you do with either partner. And, you know, there's that rush of adrenaline QTE moments where you got to save yourself and everything. And yeah, just moments like that. Like, whereas the first and second story will have like a big climax. I mean, there will obviously be QTE sections throughout the game where you'll have to do certain things in the story. Whereas the third one will have kind of like how in Connor's story, it was in bursts, you know, like chasing down the rogue androids or saving Hank from the roof, or during those sections, they're in bursts throughout the story. Whereas Kara and Marcus would be more kind of near the end a little bit, or like in the final bits of Heavy Rain, where Jaden has to do that QTE section to stop Scott, and or when Ethan's trying to save Jason. Like short burst moments of QTE sections for the third one, whereas small bits of it for the first two, and then kind of a boss fight QTE section for the last bit of the story. As far as trophies, like in each chapter, obviously there will be some sprinkled here and there within each 3 stories. For example, maybe going shots for shots. In the first story with the abusive escapee, we do a trophy where when you're out with friends, they want to do going shots for shots, where survive the game of shots. Basically, you know, when they do truth or dare, and if you've done it, you have to drink. Complete, like, win that game. Like, the object of the game obviously is to not drink as much, or yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's a fun small trophy where you muster up the courage to try something new and be interactive with people. So doing shots at the bar, playing that kind of truth or dare, never have I ever. That's what it was. Doing that kind of game with shots and not having done the most shots. And there would be like somewhat of a counter of how many times you've done it to see who won the game at the end. And there could be one, who you gonna call? Basically, it would be obviously a Ghostbusters kind of reference where she thinks that there's someone in the apartment. Her friends stay the night, so they check out everywhere in the house or the apartment, and it's all just things in her imagination. And her friend makes a joke. No, that would be kind of stupid. Or, again, I'm just spitballing ideas here. Like, I've only written like a couple cliff notes on stuff, not the entire thing, because all these are stored up in my head, these ideas. Or I'm just, again, spitballing ideas right off the bat. Or a trophy for this character to be, man, this is harder than I thought. Coming up with trophies for games like this are difficult. maybe a trophy on, depending, like when your friend tries to get you out to come to the bar and you gotta pick what you gotta wear, either something kind of casual or something not sexy or anything, but kind of more out of your comfort zone, like the outfit you want to pick or the outfit she kind of picks, something to really boast your confidence and give you like a different look, something like that. For the married couple story, a couple trophy ideas could be man, again, coming up with these are different because I don't want to go for the obvious cliche ones. Could be, for an example, Love is Blind. In chapter 5, go with the blindfold option. Obviously, that would be a chapter where you're deciding, like, you and your wife have gone to a store, got a couple items, and she tells you to choose one and they'll try it. So obviously this is more experimentation and kind of seeing what each other likes. So obviously going with the blindfold option, which can lead to a lot of fun moments. Or a trophy where you kind of tell her to be the one to take the reins, and she makes the decisions and everything, like something like that. Or for a trophy of the for a date night scenario, there are two options and you get a trophy for doing one or the other. For example, and for a married couple trying to spice things up, maybe either for a casual chapter of stuff they do, maybe do an art class with each other, like an intimate art class, or an intimate photo shoot, or you could do a cooking class, a huge cooking class where. And yes, I'm taking some references from like Hitch, where they did this like exotic food cooking class, which would be a really fun for QTE moments. And the photo shoot idea could be really fun to have intimate moments and obviously show how much you care about her, something like. And again, obviously for the spicing up in a future chapter, depending if you choose a male companion or a female companion to join the mix. Something like that, depending on all your choices. I think that story could have a lot of possibilities because of all the different choices. But again, both storylines can have a huge amount of trophy possibilities and different options. For the third one, definitely more about maybe opening up to your roommate about what happened, like with the family or everything, or maybe like while she's taking a shower, you kind of snoop a little bit to try to get to know her a little bit more. So something along the lines of those kind of sneaky moments. And the trophy could be called what could it, again, naming stuff unless I know exactly what's going on. But something along the lines of that, like snooping in on your roommate to know a little bit about her. Trophies, depending on who you end up with as your love interest. The activities they do. Making different choices on your obviously it's a college, so there's got to be at least a couple chapters where we actually go to the lecture or the classes and everything like that. Actually, you know what? Talking about that and doing like obviously doing the schoolwork half the time, but not every single time, kind of like in Persona. Maybe there could be a certain thing like near the end, you're struggling a little bit, but even though you've done a lot of work, and then it's kind of revealed that your family's trying to get you back into being with them, and ignore, like, trying to get you back by sabotaging you. Yeah, I'm taking a lot of reference from the last video I did of the game review for Life is Strange. Something like that to show, like, the parents want her to stop what she thinks, and just something like that. Like, it should be kind of maybe a modest family, and not like, and I don't mean cultural, because I don't want to go that route. But it would be really nice if the final of that, again, is more like one family member kind of outbreaks from the others and finally starts to listen to our protagonist and kind of understand and fully embrace, like, maybe afterwards, like maybe after a little conflict here and there. Because stories like that, it needs to happen fluidly. Like, it has to make sense. You can't just say this character forgives and accepts someone because it's in the script. It has to be believable. As far as the any other things I have in this, I am a big sucker for Easter eggs, so I think it would be cool in each of the 3 stories to have an Easter egg from the other 3 Quantic Dream games in this game. Just something a little fun. For example, obviously there will be, like, Easter eggs in each of the stories. For example, in the chapter of the married couple where he's at the lingerie store buying obviously buying something for the wife, you can either go with the very risque option, or she brings out this amazing red dress, which would be the red dress that Jodie wears during the missions chapter of Beyond Two Souls, or the dress that she wore during the date chapter, which would be really, really fun and cool. Another Beyond Two Souls Easter egg that could be done is in the first character's storyline. If I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember stuff from Beyond Two Souls. If they throw like an in-joke about it, where like your friend kind of, when you go to the bar and she tells you to like go talk to new people, you're not tethered to me, I'll be right here. Like telling her like to go and talk with new people, but she's still got her back, saying you're not tethered to me. That kind of in-joke about Jodie and Aiden. For the third character, while you're getting your bearings in your new dorm room with your new roommate, as you look around the room, you can find out that your roommate has a thing for it, to make it kind of aspect to be Japanese in descent and ethnicity, where you find a book about origami and you try one and it turns into the dog, and it's the dog from Heavy Rain, where the roommate will find it and see that you've read her book and tried it, and she says like you're a natural, says like, you're a natural, it's like I've been trying for years and I could barely get it like step 5. So something really fun like that, to use a dark game aspect but in a fun light. For a Detroit Become Human one, we could have in maybe the bar scene in the third character story on the game, on a television at the bar, Detroit could be playing as an homage to the Detroit Lions for Detroit Become Human, or in the first girl's story, in one of the places that they go to, they're like maybe a museum date, and one of the art pieces on display is one of Marcus's paintings from Detroit Become Human. Any of them could be done, but literally pick any one of them. Let's see, what would be another good Heavy Rain one? Like just a couple of Easter eggs from those 3 games sprinkled here and there throughout all 3 chapters, all throughout the 3 the stories. So, and at the end of the game, like after the drama sections that happen and the thriller aspects of those dark moments and happen, like I said, the 3 characters will never meet each other throughout the game. So unless I go with an idea where after some time, no, wait. Unless near the end we get that kind of inner monologue thing about how all 3 characters' lives kind of change depending on your choices in the game, whether they be sad or either the sad endings or the great endings. Keep in mind that all 3 characters will be alive at the end of the game. I'm not doing that whole cliche of some of them dying and you get a trophy for letting characters die. Thank you, Heavy Rain. I mean, it fit with the murder mystery motif, but for this one, all 3 of them will go for their inner monologues about how their lives have changed, like months after the events of like the final bits of their chapters. And as they're inner monologuing, saying that they've, depending on what happened, whether they've healed, whether she's, the first one's moved on from her past and trauma, and she sees a better future for herself, where the married one walks by and says, like, things are great with her again. Yeah, we're still keeping it fun, but definitely no more risky. Or the third one says, like, a member of her family has finally accepted her for who she is. I mean, it's a slow process, but they're working it out. And it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say. I'm discovering who I am. And as the monologues kind of end, all 3 of them cross, maybe like a walkway, like a walk light, and all 3 of them cross each other's paths and kind of say in unison, because love is complicated. But at least we're trying. And that's where the game ends and the logo comes out for Connected Hearts. This has been a weird idea I've been developing for about a year and a half now for a romance-themed choose-your-own-adventure that may have a couple cliches here and there, but at the same time, it does not glorify negative aspects of different types of relationships or love. It doesn't dumb down, and honestly, I would love to submit this idea to Quantic Dreams. I mean, I know it would be a hell of a process, but this is something I think that could be such a fun and interesting and developing game for people. And what do you guys think of my idea for Connected Hearts? It's a little out there. It's obviously based on taking references from a lot of different genres and a lot of different aspects, but I think this is something that a lot of people could like. Thank you for joining me for this video. Like, comment, subscribe down below. Join me next week where I end the month of February by going over a ranking video on all the types of amazing creatures that demand to see which one for me is the very best and see if we can catch them all. This is Gamer K, logging out.